Awesome. Thanks for that note. Um, so as I was mentioning, for the app, once you download, you will start seeing the profile of the professors. And one good thing about the profiles of the professors is you automatically get the last 5 years of publications they have made. The important thing to remember when you are exploring profiles of different professor is that uh, the publications give you a lot of information about what the professor has been doing recently. And what you have to see is in terms of uh, how many publications are in the area which you are interested in. The other thing you can look for is who are the people this person is publishing with. Is there a lot of interdisciplinary work being done, or is it more theoretical? Which journals are the typical journals the professor is publishing in? Also gives you an idea that what is the typical areas where the publications happen, and then the number of publications of the professors, and when you compare it among different professors, would give you some idea about how active the research group is. The other thing is you can obviously look at the professor. The professors in the app, not necessarily, not all of them are currently active user of the app itself. So it is, you can consider it as a search database, and then you can send out a calendar connect request on the app itself, but it might also be a good idea to find these professors on LinkedIn and reach out to them. For the people who are active users might have posted their reels, so you can get more idea about folks who are working in your area. And finally, you can also see other colleagues who might be in the area. So it is not necessary for you to just find out about the professors, but if you have connections, you can make it with the grad students who are in that area. One other thing I would like to point out is that if you make this, if you download the app and make your profile, we do keep on posting opportunities which we find, which are relevant to your specific field, and those opportunities are sent out to you via message. Here is a place where you can go to. Like if you just go to quality.com/opportunities, we kind of maintain a backlog of all the opportunities which we have sent out. So for the folks who have just downloaded the app, might not know what has been previously posted, you can go over here and look for the opportunities. And these opportunities vary from a professor looking for a graduate student for supporting them for research assistantships, or all it can be about someone looking for postdoc or even faculty positions. So this is a good way of tracking the positions which might be out there and might be relevant to you. So with that, I'll move on to introductions. So probably Pranamesh, if you want to give a quick introduction.
Sure. Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you, Dr. Sharma, for inviting me. So I'm an assistant professor in the Civil Engineering Department of IIT Kanpur in India. I primarily work on transportation sides of the things using computer vision and other like a deep learning architecture for understanding driver behavior, for traffic operations, particularly using cameras. And also like these days, I'm also working on like a eco driving feature. How can I introduce eco driving feature in cars? So that is the broad overview of the things that I work on. I did my bachelor's and master's from India itself. I did my bachelor's from just currently known as IIST Shipur in West Bengal, and then my master's from IIT Kanpur. And then my PhD was from Iowa State University. And as you understand, I have also gone through that same process of finding out faculties, finding out what are they looking for the opportunities or things like that. So I would be happy to answer different questions or different my thought process on how a student who is looking for a PhD opportunity or any other opportunity, maybe something a postdoc or so, how can they basically look for this opportunity? What are the opportunities which are available from our side, like let's say from institutions such as like IIT Kanpur or other, what my experience has been over the past.
And Pranamesh, you also work with a lot of international universities as well in terms of 2+2 PhD and all that. So you might have some answers about other
Yeah,
places, how they operate.
yeah, yeah. So should I say them now, or we can
No,
have the discussion later?
yeah, we can have a discussion maybe in a bit.
Yeah,
But let's have Kirti introduce herself.
yeah.
Hello, everyone. So, just a brief background. So, I did my bachelor's at Delhi University, then my master's at IIT Roorkee in biotechnology. Then I moved for my PhD in Germany, Heidelberg. Then I did my postdoc in Hanover. So, both PhD and postdoc in Germany. So, I have a lot of experience of the academic makeup of this country. And I also briefly worked in Malaysia as a lecturer. So I have how the funding and the PhD student should process how it works in Malaysia. So yeah.
Awesome.
So
Thank
I
you.
hope I can answer some of your questions.
Sure. Thank you. The two folks who haven't joined in person are Ashish and Amit. Ashish has, and we'll play their recordings. I did have their recordings where they talk about how the how the graduate school work in Australia, and also give some comparison compared to Japan and Switzerland. That's what Ashish would be talking about. And then Amit has a good handle on how the academic works in Sweden. So we'll see a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different processes which work out throughout this world. Let us get going with the questions which we are trying to get answered. So maybe what I would do is I would let Pranamesh take the first round, and then go to Kirti next, and then we'll play some recording. So Pranamesh, do you want to get us going?
Sure. I will basically go through like these points, right, one after another,
Yes.
maybe.
Yeah.
I will say particularly for like Indian universities, my experience from IIT Kanpur, but it's kind of similar for other universities also. So the admission process, we typically have like admission twice a year. Once for the fall semester, which the admission process will be during the April month or so. The other one is for the spring session, the winter session, if you want to call it. And the application process are currently like undergoing, which is basically during the November month or so, October, November. There is like two different things. One is which are like who are like Indian citizens, they can basically apply, and then if they are getting selected through an committee, which is basically for each department or each specialization in a group. After that, your entire program is funded by basically the government side. So you get your stipend, you have to do some TA work typically, and you get your stipend, and you will have to pay some amount of tuition fees, but those are not too high compared to the amount of money that you are making. So it is kind of getting balanced amount of money that is coming in. I will also pitch in regarding, like, let's say if you are international students who are like, you are not an Indian, but if you want to apply, we have an active like admission that goes on for like international students, typically through the Dean of International Relations, like DOIR. You can search for DOIR ITK, you will get the different opportunities which are there. There are multiple scholarships which are also available. Some of the scholarship I can name is something like, I think, ICCR scholarship. And these other kind of scholarships are also there, which funds if you are an international student and if you want to come to India to do the study. The admission process is generally handled online, where typically it is to have something like a online interview, and after that the selection goes on, and then the next process is the scholarship I already told. It's basically you have, if you're an Indian citizen, then obviously the scholarship. Even if you're an international student, you can go through something like ICCR or these other opportunities which are available. Typical duration for a PhD basically can vary, as you can understand. Generally, something like a 5 years or so can be taken as a norm. For masters, it's typically like a 2 years, in which 1 year is for coursework, other year is for thesis. But let's say IIT Kanpur also these days have introduced something like a project based, where you can have something like 1.5 year for a coursework and 6 months for something like a thesis kind of a thing. Although therefore it is not called as a thesis thing. So students can choose how they want to have their master's program, something research intensive or coursework intensive. Expectation from graduate students, since the students are getting the funding, so they have to do TA work. The TA work typically consists of something like assisting the instructor or the faculties while managing the courses, like handling the exams or doing some part in grading or like these kind of things. There are other scholarships which are available, something like if you're an Indian student, you can apply for PMRF, which has a significantly higher stipend. And in those cases, it's basically then you have to go outside to some college and then give the lecture hours for like 2 classes or so per week. Um, in terms of scholarships, if you are an international student, I will say that look for opportunities, something like I think like ICCR or so. Those typically gives us scholarships for a student to come to India and then basically do their entire study. To choose basically a graduate program, I think it's more something like your interest. That's what should be the thing. And the next thing comes, like in IIT Kanpur, the supervisor, the advisor selection happens after you join in. So 2 months, kind of like 2 months after you have joined, the advisor selection basically happens. Something like the students who joined in July end or August early, they are now choosing their advisors. So therefore, the advisor selection, but that changes across like different departments, different groups. Some other departments in IIT Kanpur itself has like you have to choose your advisor. You have to select like which advisor you want to work with during your admission round. So therefore, accordingly, you have to understand like what areas you want to work in, and then accordingly you have to select a faculty with whom you want to work. Typical jobs, like let's say after masters, here a lot of the students obviously can go to something like I can talk of like transportation kind of a thing. They can go to like industry, and the industry can be varied. It can be data analytics kind of a jobs. It can be also something like a more technical focused jobs, where it's something like, let's say if you are working as a transportation, or so you are working in a transportation firm where they are mainly doing some work related to something like a planning or other something like a sensor management or different other things also. With PhDs, obviously after that you can go for postdoc if you want. Like currently IIT Kanpur has one of the active system, like if you are able to finish PhD within like a 5 years, which is the expected duration, then for 1 year IIT Kanpur themselves is give you a postdoc for 1 year with a very good amount of stipend. This is called a fair fellowship. Otherwise, you can go for postdoc, or you can look for like academic opportunities. In PhDs, the opportunities for industry after post PhD basically varies across departments. Some departments or some particular like a specializations will have like more opportunities in industry compared to some other groups where maybe the opportunities are more in academia compared to universities, compared to industry after you do your PhD. So my last master's students have typically gone to something like a data analytics kind of a jobs, where they're working for either something like, let's say, the big four companies or other something like a startups or so, actively helping them in choosing their products. And it can be, although we are working on transportation, but students have gone to something like even like a medical startups, where they're basically using the techniques that they have learned to apply into other domains also. So that's the thing. Should I discuss the joint PhD opportunities right here, right now? Okay.
Yeah, that would be good.
So, yeah, one of the other active things that is there is a joint PhD program. which means that like let's say IIT Kanpur again, if you go to something like a maybe can I share the screen?
Yeah.
Is it possible?
Let me see.
Okay.
I'll stop sharing and then you can share your screen.
Okay. I'll try to share one.
Let me see if I can make you a.
Yeah, I think we are able to see, right?
Yes, it's still loading though. Yeah,
Okay.
that's loaded.
Okay. So if you go to something like, let's say, Office of International Relations in IIT Kanpur, you will see like the universities with whom IIT Kanpur already has an MOU of a joint PhD program. And it is all over the world. If you see, like, let's say, it's also for Australia, it's also for US, it's also for Asia and other universities in Canada and Europe and these kind of things also. Typically, now the departments vary. Like, let's say, I know for New York University, the joint PhD program is only with electrical engineering and computer science, while for Iowa State University, it's across all the departments. How this joint PhD programs will work is like you get your admission in a host institute, and then you satisfy the requirements of the PhD of each individual university, something in terms of coursework or so. And then, but the research is combined, and you can transfer some credits if you look into, if you click each of the links, you will be able to see the details of how their program has to be scheduled. Like if I consider IIT Kanpur and Iowa State University, then you have to do some courses in IIT Kanpur and then some other courses in Iowa State, so that you combine, satisfy the requirements of coursework for both Iowa State and something like IIT Kanpur. And typically the duration for which, so the students will stay in their host institute, the student will also go to the partner university, and the duration for which they will go will vary across based on number of courses that they have to do, and but the research can be done combined. Obviously, it can vary from 6 months to 2 years, I think, staying in the partner university. In IIT Kanpur, if your IIT Kanpur is your host institute, so then you are basically getting paid for your entire time in IIT Kanpur. And also, I think if you can see like the other options of like kind of everything is available. Like if you want to basically travel, then like what is the IIT Kanpur will also pay you some amount of money if you want to travel, and then the remaining part, when you go to the host partner university, they can sponsor you for your basically staying and your tuition fees covering or so. And in terms of the degree, at the end of the day, you get both the degrees. That's the best thing I can say. You get, like, let's say if you're at IIT Kanpur and Iowa State, so you get a PhD degree from IIT Kanpur, you get a PhD degree also from Iowa State. And that I think is across all other universities with whom the joint PhD program is.
I think, Pranamesh, some of the institutes might give a single degree which has logos of both the universities, so they are
Yeah,
not.
so those also happen, but I think like recently we were having some interaction with one of the dean from Iowa State was actually like visiting, and then it was discussed that uh, you can have either both logos, or because the transcript is, or the degree is such kind of a way that they have basically made it like specific, so therefore going into putting like both the logos has some more exercise that they have to make.
Yeah.
So otherwise they basically give you like
2
they say
degrees.
degree from both the universities. But it does, at the end of the day, it matters that you have the experience and the connections for both the countries. I think that is going to be like a very advantageous point. Like now you can be in whichever you want to have your further life, in whichever countries that you want to choose. It gives you more opportunity, and anyways doing a PhD where you get like both the opportunities, I think that is an excellent thing to have. And if you're getting your funding paid, which happens in most of the cases, I will say, then it is like really a good opportunity which students can look for. The admission goes with a regular process. After the student joins in, then they can choose and opt for this option. But obviously they can pre-select, okay, so this is what I want to go with. and it's always a good thing to have connecting with the faculty that, okay, I want to work in this domain. Are you looking for the students? Because a lot of the times these days, also the departments have restriction on the number of students that you can take in terms of using the government scholarship. So therefore, a faculty might not be looking for the students. So therefore, if you are basically looking to work with some faculty, it is always good to send an email with a resume and things like that, and maybe that can get like further discuss of how do you approach a faculty that you want to work with that faculty. But that's a basic kind of a thing, and I think there's kind of opportunities are there across different other institutes also. I can say this is just from my saying from IIT Kanpur, but these kind of a joint degree programs are excellent opportunities to have, basically working on both sides and then looking for different other opportunities also.
Awesome.
I will stop presenting.
Thanks, Pranamesh. Let's go back and share my screen. Just give me a second. So I think what we'll do is we'll move on to Kirti. Kirti, could you give the responses for the questions displayed on the screen in from the perspective of Germany? And
Yeah.
also, if you want to talk about your other, like from, you said Malaysia, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, you can compare between the two as well. So
Yeah. So the admission process, basically you apply to the graduate school you're interested in. Each graduate school has its own admission process, own portals where you apply, upload your data, and the requirements are a bit different. The fees is quite minimal here. Really one of the I think the lowest, as I know. Obviously it depends on the university, but it's really it's less than eating out one evening, something like this. So the fees is quite minimum. Exams, so when you apply, the application process is quite intensive. You have to write your proposal. You have to upload all your academic transcripts, starting from bachelor's to master's. Yeah, one extra requirement here is sometimes English or German. So language skills are important. So for English, they're like IELTS course or TOEFL, or for German, they expect like any of the TELC exams, or so this also has to be uploaded. And once this is uploaded, it again, the timeline is different between different universities, but it can be a bit slow.
So
Who
I
makes-
think, Kirti, you can talk about Heidelberg specifically. I
Yeah,
know
okay,
that.
then I will talk about Heidelberg. So once I had uploaded all the documents and all the transcripts, the first call I got was in a month. That was from the program coordinator, who was just checking and asking very brief questions and really making sure that if I uploaded that I have a bachelor's in biochemistry, I knew what is biochemistry and not just having a degree. So like a first, let's say a first interview is done for the first month. Then this program coordinator actually decides whether you would go in the admission process further. Because the job of the program coordinator is to match the prospective PhD students to supervisors who have already published their proposal, or the proposal for the next 3-4 years, the research they want to do. So basically, they want to match the supervisor with the student. So they make the decision if you further go in the admission process. and meet the supervisor. Then I go to the second point. So availability of scholarship. So if you go through this process, all these positions are already funded. If it's a graduate school process. And then you apply to this graduate school, and basically once you have the interview with the program coordinator, he fixes you up with the supervisor. With the supervisor, I had 2 sets of interviews where I had to present my research of masters. So basically the whole research projects and the results I got, or the publications I published, I had to present it to my future supervisor. Plus there were an independent set of 4 supervisors who also gave an independent view on my project. So basically I had to present my master's project to 2 sets of people. And then they would make the decision if I am fit, or if my past experience fits to the current project. When I passed through all of these hurdles, there was scholarship at the end, because these had already been funded by the government. So I didn't have to apply for an extra scholarship after this. So once I got an acceptance letter from the supervisor and the graduate school, the funding for the next, so the initial funding is only for 3 years. But obviously the PhD takes more. So then is the time for the last year or 6 months or 2 years, then the student has to, how should I say, apply for other sources, like they have to apply for an extension or other sources of money from the graduate school, or here they have something called DFK, which is like a government institute which funds research. Typical duration for PhD is minimum 3 years and maximum 6 years. Yeah, so and it can be anywhere between 4 to 5 years, but then the last years, the funding has to be arranged extra, because the initial funding is only promised for 3 years. Expectations from the graduate students. So my experience has been they really don't spoon feed anything. Like even from day one, you have to show that you like you deserve to be here, something like this. So like no spoon feeding, no nothing. You really have to you have to present your data quite often, because although the scholarship is for 3 years, every year it's reviewed. So every 1 year you have to present your data to an independent committee who will review if your project is going how it was planned and if you should get funding. So expectations are quite high. We are also expected to do a lot of coursework, which I think is quite similar in all graduate school. We are also expected to supervise master students, but I think that is also common in all graduate schools. Any special program scholarship? The most famous is DARD, and this is quite unique. So basically in this, what you do, you find a supervisor. Maybe you don't want to go through a graduate school. You have some famous scientist that you want to work with. So you basically approach him and you say, okay, can we write a project together? And then you decide the timelines, the focus, the money that you need. And so basically you are deciding everything. And then you apply with the supervisor to the scholarship program. And once you get it, it's also quite prestigious to get this. So it's it's called DAD. Again, to get that.
National students also apply for those things, or it's just for purely for German nationals?
No, it's really for international students. They it's for international students. The only thing international students have to show is their willingness or some prior knowledge of German language. So yeah, here the TELC exams and the other exams, the language exams come into play. Other key factors to consider when choosing a graduate program. Yeah, I mean, the public universities are considered better compared to private, and they have a better, better reputation. So this would be my suggestion, to go through a public university compared to a private. Typical job offers after PhD. Usually here, to stay in academia it's like exceptionally tough, but I'm sure it's also in the other countries. But here is, I have a feeling, a little bit more tough than India and even US. So the typical jobs are usually companies. There are a lot of companies here, like startups, or in my field, there are a lot of biotech companies and like Pfizer and everything. And most people then continue their research work in an industrial setting.
Any, like, you mentioned you have also looked in Malaysia as well. Is the setup?
Yeah, Malaysia is also quite interesting. So if there, it's also the same. So basically, you approach like a researcher that you want to work with, and then the good thing is, then they are quite open, and they actually want students to come to them. This was my feeling, at least. And then you write a research proposal together, and they are very so basically my experience is from Monash, which has a satellite in Kuala Lumpur. So so there they really encourage, and they really to write a grant, and the chances of getting the grant accepted are also quite high. So basically, the student is kind of driving his own research and taking the lead, and yeah.
So are you submitting that grant application to a government agency or to the university itself in Monash?
So both. So they it goes to the university itself, and it can also be submitted. So what they do is they have a lot of collaborations again, and then these professors, they have collaborations, for example, also with because Monash is a private university, so they have a lot of collaborations with the public university, and then you write together. So if it's not accepted here, then it gets accepted at the other university, and yeah.
Okay, great. I think I'll go to the next slide. And Kirti, did you have anything else to say, or can we move on to the next?
No, just if someone is considering Germany, the only thing they have to keep in mind a little bit is the language.
Okay.
This is something additional, different from the other places.
That makes sense. Let me play the recording from Amit, who will be talking about universities in Sweden. Pranamesh, when I play, can you just make sure that the sound is audible?
Sure.
First of all, thanks, Professor Sharma, for getting me invited for this interesting program. And also my apologies that I'm not able to attend in a synchronous manner because I happen to get a doctor's appointment at the same time. But don't worry, I'm doing fine. Thanks. So what I'll do is that we decided, me and Professor Sharma, that I will have this recording and then he can play it during the actual session. I'll try to answer some of the questions that has already been raised in the slides, so that hopefully I would have answered most of the queries or concerns you might be having by that time. So I'll be talking about the grad school system in Sweden. Okay. So Sweden has got three different types of grad schools. So there is the master studies, but master studies are of two flavors. In one there is 1 year masters MSc, and the other one is 2 year masters. So the 1 year one is called magister, and then the 2 year is called masters. But again, for international job market, they are quite similar. Tuition fees is roughly to the tune of 7 to 10,000 euros. But these things are highly regulated in Sweden. The government of Sweden releases the numbers. Every university charges the same amount of money. Master studies are mostly taught masters, like in the USA. So you have to do a couple of courses, and then there'll be a project. But what might be slightly different in Sweden from the USA is that most of the master studies are quite applied in nature. So, for example, almost half of our students do their master's project with the local industry. So local industries usually float some problem statements, and then there happens the usual negotiation, like a couple of guys will apply. These are mostly not paid, but the thing is that you get a flavor of real industrial problems. And of course, you will have an academic supervisor and somebody from industry. So that's one good thing. And that in addition to that, economy of Sweden is doing pretty well. So most of our master students get placed quite easily. PhD is a bit different in Sweden because PhD is treated as a full-time job. Usually the time to take PhD officially is 4 years. So you will be getting funding for 4 years. But you are expected to do some teaching in the department as well. So usually PhD students end up doing 20% teaching. That's like thumb rule, normal rule. And 80% of the time is spent in PhD. So because of that, they take a little bit longer. But don't forget that this is very different from the American or Indian model of PhD. So here you are like proper job holder, you get a salary, you get pension, things saved into your pension account, all of those things. So you have got rights, and all those things are there. It's very different from the American and Australian PhD or Indian PhD. That is why, because it's like a job, you cannot just apply without an advertisement. So when a project comes to the university starts the recruitment process, just like any other job. And hence, entry to do PhD in Sweden is a bit restrictive because you just can't apply and get chosen and then pay something and then do it. So it's just like a job. You have to wait till the right type of PhD advertisement is out and then apply and so on. And most of the PhDs in Sweden are funded through projects in which industries will be partners. Hence, you may end up in a situation where you are funded by two projects. So like one project funds 40%, the other one funds 40%, and 20% you have to do teaching. Hence, you may end up working on two projects, which might sometimes be slightly different. So time management is of essence here. Sometimes I've seen people get overwhelmed when they come to this kind of setup because it's very different from the usual academic PhD. It's almost like an industrial job. That being said, because you work so closely with industries, mostly before people finish their PhDs, they get offers from industries with whom they would have worked. Yeah, there is no tuition fees for PhD, of course, because it's a job. And yeah, what else? I think all universities in Sweden are accessible to international students. Sweden has got two cadres of universities. In fact, most Scandinavian and Western European countries have that. So one are the research universities, which are like university something like Oulu University in Finland, or let's say Chalmers University in Gothenburg, things like that. Then there is another tier of universities called Högskola. and they are known by different names in different Scandinavian countries. Like in Finland, they are called Universities of Applied Science. In Sweden, they are Högskolas. Högskolas literally translate to university schools or university colleges. And the difference is that Högskolas have, each of them have got certain focus areas, and they work very closely with industries. Hence, your work or your masters will be even more industry oriented than a pure science university. The downside is that if you're looking for an academic career, Högskolas don't really have any academic rankings. Like, they don't appear in QS ranking and so on, because they are not full-fledged universities. Like full-fledged universities can offer PhD in any stream, right? Högskolas can offer PhDs only in the streams in which they are strong. So, for example, the Högskola I work in as a visiting professor, Högskola Vast, it's in Trollhättan. Trollhättan is the city of Saab, if you remember Saab cars, and a lot of other manufacturing companies like GK, Aerospace, Scania, Volvo, and so on. But anyway, so the focus of this university has been production technology. So we have like tens of millions of dollars of funding to work with the local industries, and one of the focus is welding and powder bed fusion. And my role mostly in the projects would be the sensor and AI parts, because most automation processes nowadays require a substantial amount of AI. Integrate in the academic system, it's fairly straightforward. People in Sweden are very, very friendly, and most of them speak very fluent English. So there is no problem with that. Most university communications will be both in Swedish and in English. And of course, like most other countries, the day you join from that, you are eligible to attend these free Swedish courses as well. And application processes and documents, I'm not really sure about that for masters, but PhD, of course, they come through advertisement in job portals. Right, I think, in terms of factors for universities, I think if you're applying for PhD, it's obvious because PhDs are well funded. So if you get it, there are two things guaranteed. Number one, you will be getting very good salary. Secondly, you'll be working with industries, hence your future. If you want to work in industry after PhD, that's almost guaranteed. Other thing that I would like to mention that because Sweden has got these two cadre of universities, do consider Högskolas as well, because even though they don't have a QS ranking, they work very closely with industries, and yes, it's just slightly different type of PhD with lots of industry flavor. Of course, internationally they're the same, because you publish a couple of journal papers, some conference papers, do some research and so on. But just the experience you will get is very, very industry oriented. I think that's all from my side. In case you require any further inputs, just let me know. Thank you.
Sure. The next I'll be talking about would be a recent recording which we did for Ashish. He was presenting in our previous round of information and talks a lot about how Australian system works. So I'll play the screen as well. Australia and compare, like, what are the big differences you saw between Europe and Japan compared to in Australia?
Sure, so definitely I can start with that. So I can start with Australia first, and perhaps start with the PhD program. Like we have different programs for that. Like we have a PhD, we have a master's by research as MPhil, or you can have a master's program primarily focusing on a specific, let's say, coursework. So in case of PhD program, like obviously people coming from overseas would like to have a scholarship. It's very hard to survive in a foreign country without having a scholarship. And generally in Australia, our scholarship round starts somewhere in the month of July. So it's, our intake is from actually January. For example, at TUT, so we have a specific deadlines for international students to apply for scholarship. So we have like individual institutes have their own annual scholarship round. For example, at QUT, our annual scholarship round is starting in the month of July. The application process starts in the month of April. And by July, they should have the complete application submitted to QUT. And then the application is processed by a committee. By November, they come to know about whether they have got the annual scholarship or not. And if they have been successful, they should join between January to July next year. So idea is that they should join before the start of the next scholarship round. And it's actually highly competitive. I have seen the quality of applications have improved dramatically since last 10 years. So the number of applications we are getting is really great. Like earlier, we had students, even let's say, so we have a GPA on the scale of 7. So it's not like on the scale of 10. On the scale of 7, we used to get, let's say, good applications of let's say 5.8 or 6 with good. Now we're getting really very, very high, high GPA. But GPA is not the only factor in this whole scholarship process. So if I talk about the process, like, you have to first, you have to first figure out where you want to apply. So basically, which institute you want to apply, who are the faculty member with whom you have to really, engage with. You actually approach to that faculty member. The faculty member interviews you, and basically you guys discuss about the common area of research. And as an applicant, you have to prepare a research proposal that has to be submitted as a part of the application process. Application process should also have your English, I would say, English language test requirements. So we don't have a GRE score, but you need to have like, for example, IELTS is one of the accepted scores, or TOEFL or PTE. So there are there are a couple of English language test requirements that you have to meet as an applicant from a non-English speaking country. And I believe most of the people here perhaps are from non-English speaking country, but like the requirements are well explained on the websites. So you basically submit a full application, and your academic proposed academic supervisor is going to make a recommendation for you for your application to the committee, in-house committee, for the annual scholarship round. But there are other scholarships also. For example, the supervisor might have the scholarship from industry. And then those scholarships are already advertised on the website or on the LinkedIn channels and other sources. Those scholarships can be accessed, are available outside the scholarship round also. So you don't have to just wait for a scholarship round. Once, like for example, last year I had a scholarship from industry. I advertised it, and I got a number of applicants, and we hired the applicant from there. So that's another source of scholarship. Plus there are multiple other scholarships also, but I think these two are the main ones. So admission process is actually highly competitive. What you have to look for in that, like for example, your application should be quite genuine. So when you approach to a supervisor, it should be like, it should not just writing a generic email to all the supervisors. There should be a genuine interest in that process, and you basically set up a case why you should be doing a PhD or MPhil at that place. And basically the focus on your I would say track record is actually very important there. What was the second question you have? I think I'm talking a lot. So typical duration of a PhD or MS degree. So a typical duration in Australia is quite different from one in India. We have a 3 years PhD degree. It's a total research intensive. You don't have to do too much of a coursework unlike the other countries. So that 3 years, that can be extended to 3.5 years. So generally you get an offer for 3 years extended to with the possibility of extension to 3.5 years. That's for PhD. And for MS, it is 1.5 years to 2 years. So that's the general duration. What are the expectations from the graduate student? Expectations are obviously like you should be self-motivated, self-driven to actually perform that research. Definitely, you should have a good time management because, as I said, it's a 3 years PhD program. So you should respect the deadlines and actually meet all the requirements. You should have good research ethics. So that's actually one of the important requirements there. And obviously, like all the PhDs and masters, you should be disseminating your research into the right place. Like for example, the publications are really important, and actually quality work is important. If you're funding it from a industry project, expectations are that you are meeting with the industry quite regularly and also talking to them. So it all depends on what actually project you are actually working on. Other key factors to consider when choosing a graduate program. I mean, this is, I think, an important aspect whenever you are looking for a graduate program, as Anuj was saying, like at our time, like even at my time, I just joined Japan because I got the scholarship from there. So, are you able to hear me? I think my screen is hanged. Anuj, can you hear me? Good, thank you. So basically, your key factor that you should definitely consider is you'll be spending the next, let's say, for actually PhD, next 3 to 4 years of your time, or perhaps even beyond that, with actually a supervisor. So look at what areas that really attracts you. What is the core area of research that you want to work on, and that's actually really important. During an interview with the supervisor, it's not just that supervisor interviewing you; you're also interviewing the supervisor. Do you really want to work in that? It's to do your homework, figure out what are the areas where that team is working on, and is your interest aligns with that one. That's actually very important. Obviously, scholarship is the most important thing. Without funding, you cannot do anything. But apart from scholarship, it's also about the reputation of that group, the discipline, the university where actually you are applying. What are the research facilities that are available? So if you want to work, for example, if you want to work on, let's say, transport big data, but that group is not working on that group is totally working on a theoretical research, but they don't have availability of the transport big data, then they say that might not be the right group for you to actually work on. So if you figure out what facilities are actually available, perhaps what are the industry connections or what are the future postdoc opportunities, those things should also be considered for, because when you finish your PhD, you might like to basically extend, like you might like also explore opportunities for actually postdoc with the group or perhaps with some other groups. So what industry connections they have is also useful to look at. But definitely, I mean, it is the group that with whom you're going to work is actually really important thing that you should be looking at. Typical jobs after MS and PhD, last 2-3 students. I mean, definitely like when you're coming abroad, you will also like to have further experience. And if I look back at PUT itself, like at a broader level of our transport students, it's like 50% have gone into academia, 50% have gone into, or maybe more than 50% have gone into industry. So industry values a lot these days research. So it's not like if you've done a PhD, you are overqualified. No, they do value. And in fact, if you want to, let's say, after finishing your, let's say, MS or PhD in Australia, if you've done a 2 years program, you are eligible for the, like say, temporary visa, which is given to you for 3 to 4 years. And within that time period, you have to basically apply for the permanent residency to actually, live beyond that time period. And if you have done a PhD, you should definitely be able to meet all the intake requirements for, or all the points that are needed for the PR. Now, these things changes every year. So, but so far, almost all the students who have come to Australia and actually have actually worked with me from overseas, they have actually either applied for a PR or they have got job overseas. Like one of my PhD students is an academic in New Zealand, other one has gone back to India, other one is basically in UK. So I mean the opportunities are there, and definitely doing a 2 years program in Australia at least gives you enough points to actually apply for a temporary residency immediately, which gives you the work rights for next 2 to 3 years, and within that time period you have to look for the permanent residency. Yeah.
So I think we will move on to the questions for the sake of time. Maybe quickly looking at some of the questions over here which has been submitted. I believe this has been answered by all the speakers about list of universities. Most of the universities have, most of the universities internationally accept international students. So that is that's pretty easy to answer. I think in terms of how to integrate into new countries' academic system, one of the things to look for specifically, as Kirti as well as Ashish mentioned, would be that if you're going to a country where the language is slightly different, then you might want to consider it as well, especially if you're looking for getting a job over there in industry. Important consideration to have. I think ideal time for to start preparing the applications and shortlisting professors. Usually this is a long process, but I personally would say that if you're applying, for example, for fall 2025, for fall 2026, you probably should have begun reaching out to professors and shortlisting professors. I would let Pranamesh maybe talk a little bit about the Indian admissions. Is spring admission preferred over fall, or anything you want to contribute, Pranamesh?
So in India also, it's typically the fall admission is preferred compared to a spring. A lot of the times in the spring, many departments also not even float admission. It's only for specific some of the times. So fall is generally like much more like a significant preferred, and we get like significant lot more in terms of fall. And it's also because how the coursework schedule, it's better to come in fall so that you take your coursework in the fall semester, which are more like the compulsory coursework or regular coursework which students will have to take. So that is the thing. In terms of the time, I think so. Typically, as I said in the beginning, like let's say in India, so even if you are a international student, you will typically be applying during the term of April to May. Sometimes it can go to June also for international students, because international students happen after the Indian students are done. But reaching out to faculties, you can do even earlier kind of thing, maybe like March or so. That's where the thing comes. But in India, since it's basically going through the department and the committee that the department has basically formed at that time. So it's like you should be contacting the professors also, but you have to look for the department when the department is basically floating their deadlines.
In terms of the next question, what factors do universities consider while evaluating applications? I think this is in general common across the universities. I would say that they definitely consider your GPA. Most of the universities have started waiving the GREs now. So that depends, are university dependent, but if you have some research experience in the past, that counts a lot. Some of the universities, the professors would do an actual interview with you while you are doing the while you're applying. So I think maybe Pranamesh, in terms of your end, is there anything else which you would consider prior to taking a student?
So if I consider like India, as I said, like it is generally the students have to go through so the admission is done irrespective of like, so the individual faculty have a lesser role to play, obviously like some role, but the admission will be happening more because of there is a committee, and the committee will have all the faculties definitely. So therefore, it's not just one faculty who decides whether the faculty wants to take in the student. So it's basically the committee which will take in the admission thing, and after that, basically the faculties can be chosen, but that varies across departments quite a few of the times. Like let's say here, I think like BSB, which is some biological science, there you have to have like 2 rounds of interview. One which is more like a faculty specific kind of a thing, other one which is more generalistic or so. So those will depend across departments also.
Awesome. Some of the other question, as I mentioned, GRE has been mostly slowly going away, but most of the places have TOEFL and IELTS for English proficiency. I personally would say that the research experience and work experience is very critical if you're applying for PhD. For masters, maybe you can get by without having some experience, but PhD, they definitely look for one of the 3 things. Either you should have a strong experience outside in the field, or you need to have a strong master's degree. I think probably this is a question for maybe Kirti as well as Pranamesh. Do the system allow a direct PhD admission in your case?
In India, it is allowed, and so you can apply for direct PhD after your bachelor's.
Okay. And in that case, do you look for any specific like experience?
Not really. Again, like, so in India, I can say it's basically dependent on the admission, the interview, and in the interview, it's basically they are asking most of the fundamental questions related to maths, physics, or chemistry, or these kind of things. So they are basically checking your fundamentals. Obviously, they will ask, like, let's say if you have something like a research experience, questions can be asked regarding specifics of the research, so that it's basically to understand how much you have understood your research when you have done it. So that is also down there. Yeah, but that's a basic thing. But as with the BTech students, we understand that it's not the case. So therefore, typically what happens is then maybe some of the times you have like a higher GPA requirement for the direct PhD. Like let's say in IIT Kanpur, we have like a minimum of 7.5 out of 10 that you need to have. That's the institute specific. And after that, each individual department, each individual group during the specific time will have its own cutoff. But this cutoff is stringent cutoff of if you are wanting a direct PhD, you need to have at least 7.5 CPI. So that is there, but we understand that maybe for a direct PhD will not have a lot of like a research experience, but if the fundamentals are strong and if you perform well in the interview, that suffice.
Okay. Kirti, do you know if in Germany there is a possibility of a direct PhD without masters?
So if your bachelor's is for 4 years and you have enough experience, like work experience, industry experience, then you can. But for example, in my case, I had a bachelor of 3 years, and that is not accepted for a direct PhD.
Makes sense.
But that's why it was handy for me to have a master's degree, and then, but for direct, you definitely need 4 years and research experience.
Okay, that makes sense. I think the last question is what common mistakes do students do while selecting a program or advisor? My personal thing, which I feel a common mistake which they do, is they only go by ranking. There are a lot of good universities which might not be in the top 100 QS list and things like that, but they have a really good experience and also get fully funded PhDs. But that's from my side. Pranamesh, do you have any nuggets?
Yeah, I will say that particularly if you want to select an more something like an advisor or so, you should go with the domain in which you want to work, whether you're interested or not, because it's a long-term commitment, particularly for like PhD. So that is one of the things that rather something like, let's say again, the university or things like that. The first thing is whether your research expectation is like matching. Given that although in PhD you have significant amount of time to adapt to new requirements that may be there, even like during my time I shifted quite a bit. So, but the basic thing should match. Okay, so I want to work in this area or so. And it should be more something like an advisor. It's a good thing to also maybe like contact if you're looking for a specific advisor or so, you can contact with your students. A lot of the times the faculty's website or so, or in some other way you can get like what are the current students. You can maybe reach out to the students and get talk to them also to get a more information on the what is the research work or what kind of things are going on.
Awesome. Thank you. I think those were the last questions. I'll open up the floor. Anyone in the audience would like to answer any ask any specific questions? I know there are only a few left now, but any other questions you folks might have? I don't see any questions coming in. So I think thank you both, Pranamesh and Kirti. Thanks for your time. It's amazing to have you on the panel. And I would say that if I receive any other questions, I'll pass it on to you if I'm not able to answer them myself. But again, thank you. Thanks a lot for joining the session. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for
Thanks.
joining.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.